anxiety creates excessive thinking and how anxiety keeps your mind stuck in overthinking. This is actually the focus of today's episode. Hello, everyone. I'm Aziza. Welcome back to another episode of Grow with Aziza. So, as I mentioned, today we are going to focus on anxiety. On the previous episode, we focused on overthinking. And I believe overthinking and anxiety are connected. That is why I thought of talking about anxiety in today's episode. So, let me ask you a question. Have you ever felt completely exhausted from thinking? Not physical exhaustion, but mental exhaustion. The kind where your body is sitting still, but your mind just won't stop. You keep replaying conversations. You keep worrying about the future. You keep imagining worst case scenarios. You keep asking yourself questions like, what if something goes wrong? What if I make a mistake? What if they don't like me? What if I fail? What if something bad happens? And no matter how much you think about it, your mind never seems satisfied. If you have experienced this, I'm here to tell you you are not alone. Actually, many people struggle with anxiety and overthinking. In fact, one of the most common questions people ask is, why can't I stop thinking? Why does my mind keep racing? And why do I overthink everything? And today, I want to talk about something important. What if the problem is not actually overthinking? What if anxiety is creating the overthinking? Because once you understand the connection between anxiety and excessive thinking, everything starts to make more sense. Well, one of the biggest misunderstandings about anxiety is that people think anxiety is simply feeling nervous. But anxiety is much more than that. Anxiety is your brain trying to protect you. Your brain believes there might be danger somewhere. So, what happened? Your brain starts searching for problems, searching for threats, searching for risk, and searching for anything that could potentially go wrong. And how does it search? By thinking a lot. Let's have an example. Imagine a security guard working overnight. Their job is basically to look for danger, to stay alert, to notice problems. And now imagine that security guard becomes convinced that danger could be anywhere. So, what would happen? They would check everything repeatedly. They would check every sound, every movement, every possibility. This is exactly what anxiety does inside your mind. An anxious brain becomes a security guard that never goes home. It is constantly checking, constantly scanning, constantly searching for danger, and that is why anxiety creates excessive thinking. Well, the problem is that anxiety doesn't know the difference between real danger and imagined danger. For example, if you are standing in the middle of a road and a car is coming toward you, in this case, anxiety is useful. Why? Because anxiety helps you react quickly, it helps keep you safe. But modern anxiety often works differently. Now, your brain treats uncertainty as danger. For example, difficult conversation, job interview, presentation, first date, new opportunity, a mistake, someone's opinion, your brain sees uncertainty and immediately starts searching for threats. And that search becomes overthinking. Have you ever noticed that anxious thoughts often begin with the words like, what if? What if I fail? What if they judge me? What if I embarrass myself? What if something goes wrong? What if I am making the wrong decision? These questions feel productive. It feels like you are solving problems, but many times you are simply feeding anxiety because anxiety loves unanswered questions. The more uncertainty exists, the more anxiety demands more thinking. One thing I have actually noticed is that people with anxiety often believe thinking more will make them feel safe. They think stuff like, if I think about this long enough, I will find the answer. If I analyze every possibility, I will be prepared. If I worry enough, I can prevent bad things from happening. But usually, the opposite happens. The more they think, the more anxious they become. And the more anxious they become, the more they think. So it's actually, it becomes like a cycle. Because seriously, the more they think, the more anxious they become. And the more anxious they become, the more they think. So, do you see that? It's a cycle. It becomes a cycle. Anxiety creates overthinking. Overthinking creates more anxiety. Then anxiety creates even more overthinking. And the cycle goes on. So, do you see the concept? That is why anxiety and overthinking are connected. Anxiety comes, overthinking comes after. Overthinking comes, anxiety comes after. They move in a circle. And this is why many people actually feel mentally exhausted even when they haven't done much physically, because their minds have been working overtime all day. Their minds have been running simulations, creating scenarios, predicting problems, preparing for situations they may never happen. It is actually like having 50 browser tabs open in your brain at the same time. Really, it is like that. And no wonder you are tired. No wonder you struggle to focus. And no wonder your mind feels overwhelmed because you have a lot in your mind. It is like having 50 browser tabs. When you open 50 browser tabs on your laptop, what happens to your laptop? For sure, your laptop starts slowing down. The same goes to your brain. Another thing anxiety does is that convincing you that every thought is important. And this is a huge problem because when someone has an anxious thought, they immediately start analyzing it. They start thinking about stuff like, what does this mean? Why am I thinking this? What if this thought is true? But not every thought deserves your attention. In fact, many thoughts are simply mental noise. They appear and disappear. And the problem begins when we treat every thought like an emergency. One thing that actually helped me understand anxiety better was realizing this. Anxiety wants certainty, but life can't provide certainty. There is no way to guarantee that nobody will judge you, and there is no way to guarantee success. There is no way to eliminate every risk. There is no way to predict the future perfectly. And because certainty is impossible, Anxiety keeps searching, it keeps thinking, it keeps worrying because it believes the answer is just one more thought away. But it rarely is. So, what can we do in this case? Well, the first step is understanding that overthinking is often a symptom of anxiety. So, the goal is not to think harder, but the goal is to feel safer. Because when your nervous system feels safe, your mind naturally becomes quieter, which means that getting enough sleep, moving your body, maybe taking breaks from social media, talking to someone you trust, spending time in nature, practicing mindfulness, slowing down, not because these things magically solve anxiety, but because they tell your brain that you are safe right now. And a brain that feels safe doesn't need to search for danger constantly. Another powerful question to ask yourself is this thought helping me solve a problem or is it helping me stay anxious? Because that question can actually change everything. Because sometimes what feels like problem solving is actually just worry, and worry rarely produces clarity. So, if anxiety has been creating excessive thinking in your life, I want you to remember something. You are not weak, you are not broken. Your brain is trying to protect you. It is simply working too hard. So the goal is not to fight your mind, but the goal is to teach it that not every uncertainty is a threat. Not every thought is important. And not every problem needs to be solved right now. At the end of the day, anxiety creates excessive thinking because anxiety is constantly searching for danger. Anxiety believes more thinking will create more safety, but real peace often comes from accepting that some uncertainty will always exist. And that's okay. Really, that is okay because you don't need to control everything to be okay. You don't need to predict everything to be safe. And you don't need to solve every possible future problem before living your life. So, yeah, this is basically everything I thought of sharing in today's episode. I really hope today's episode is useful. If you have questions or if you have other topics that you want me to focus on, feel free to let me know down below what kind of topics you want me to explain on the future episodes. And if this episode helped you better understand anxiety, overthinking, racing thoughts, or mental exhaustion, don't forget to subscribe and share it with someone who might need to hear it. And remember, a peaceful mind is not a mind that has all the answers. A peaceful mind, it is a mind that no longer feels the need to search for them every second of the day. So, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. I wish you a great day, and I'll be looking forward to having you on the upcoming episode. Have a great day and take care. Bye bye.